There are definitely days when horses have off days, just like us. Maybe they've been standing in the storm for 3 days if they live outside and they get a bit tired and fed up with that.
Earlier on, you mentioned that horses can be introverts and extroverts. Now, as human beings, we all talk, don't we? We all categorise ourselves as, well, I'm extroverted because of this, or I like my own time and my own space, so I'm an introvert, or I'm 50-50. How do we know whether our horse is an introvert or an extrovert?
Yeah, see, that's quite a tough one. These days now, I actually refer to them as low, medium, or high-spirited. So my Mia is, unfortunately, she left us this month 3 years ago. She's the one that I wrote the book about, the horse that's her. That's my Mia. And she was my biggest teacher. I have to try not to cry now.
I was going to say, this has got to be, despite all of your accolades, it's got to be a constant education for you to keep up to date with all the advances in learning. How do you keep up to date with the latest in the horsemanship sort of news of world? Hello and welcome to the Curious Equestrian podcast with me, Anna Louise, and our guest today is Zoe Code, founder of Get Good with Horses. Zoe is an inspiring figure in the equestrian world and has dedicated her life to horses, becoming prominent and known for her professionalism in the instructor spheres, training and working as a coach since 2007. She's also a talented artist and poet, achieving success with her biographical compilation of events titled The Horse That Broke Two Legs and Survived, earning her a Best International Book Award. She initially gained recognition as a 3-star Pirelli professional, and she's now an esteemed horse and human instructor from the academic art of riding. And she joins us now on the podcast to delve more into the world of true liberty. Zoe, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much, Anna Louise. It's really nice.
Oh, you're so welcome. No, well, it's sometimes nice, isn't it, to reflect on our achievements when you listen to an introduction like that. Does it make you feel proud of what you have garnered over the years?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, time is ticking so fast now. And when I look back, especially at my time as a Pirelli professional, many moons ago, I feel like I'm a kind of a different person to who I was then. But of course, I carry a lot of what I learned in my heart and try to just keep persevering with a career with the horses. So, yeah.
And when we think about the word liberty, and I'm sure you get this a lot, Zoe, but I often think of the trick training, the horses rearing on command or bowing down and sort of the round of applause. But what does true liberty mean to you?
Well, true liberty, because you can define horse training in various ranges. So you have trick training, and quite often when people think of trick training, they think of immediately positive reinforcement. So that means that the horse gets a goodie when they're given when they are rewarded for what they're being asked. And then you have communicative training. So that means let's talk from a natural horsemanship point of view, where the horse is rewarded on the release for effort. The differences there usually are in how you are communicating to the horse. So, for an example, the pedestal. If I'm teaching a horse to stand on a pedestal, I can do it one of two ways. I can lift the horse's leg and help them put their foot on the pedestal and give them a goodie. That therefore sits a little bit in the trick category for me, because you are, for the lack of better words, tricking the horse into what you are asking them to do. If I'm asking the horse to stand on a pedestal from a communicative point of view, then I'm going to give it on more of a puzzle-solving way. So, for example, if I invite the horse to put its foot on the pedestal and they make an effort, then I'm going to release. So the horse actually starts to use the brain to figure out the puzzle. So that's the differences in the communication for me in liberty training. Well, that's also just horse training, but if we're talking about liberty training, it's the same thing. I can reward the horse, for example, if I want to teach the horse the stick to me position, or I call it the stay with me position, where the horse stays by my shoulder and walks with me trots with me, canters with me. I can reward with reward-based training with a goodie, and kind of, for the lack of better words, I don't want to use the word bribe, but it's an incentive to ask the horse to stay with me. Or I can get the horse to figure out through reward and release and good feeling and making them feel really good by staying with me. And then also tuning into the herd of two instinct, because that moment then when I'm with my horse, I want to be a herd. And if I work with multiple horses, I've only worked with a maximum 4, then we're a herd of 5. So we're tuning into their natural instincts in that sense. So there is a difference in communication.
I was just going to ask you, Zoe, for you, what does a successful True Liberty session look like?
Well, at the end of the day, it should be like watching paint dry. Everything should just be really slow, easy. The horse feels great. You know, you see a lot on social media, people talking about the expression of the horse, their ears are back. Well, sometimes horses put their ears back, depending on where they're concentrating and stuff like that. So sometimes their ears are back, sometimes they're forward. It should just be really unified and very beautiful. And the horse should not be nabbing at your pockets every 5 minutes for the cookie, because it's now performed its task. For me, it's really about a relationship, and it's hard to describe. When you find the connection with your horse, and quite oftentimes people are perplexed as to what connection actually really is, it just has this wonderful energy flow. It's just this, and when you see that, if you observe somebody who is at true liberty with their horse, you just see it straight away, and you might not be able to explain what you're seeing, but you can just see it and feel it.
What does that feeling feel like to you?
Basically my bubble. I go into my bubble, and every communication that I ask from the horse is returned in a conversation. Sometimes they can say no, but most of the time horses, because they're so great and they give us so many gifts, they say yes. And everything just feels really easy. You know, you don't have to be big in your movements. The horse just picks up on what you're asking, almost to the point sometimes it's as if they're reading your mind, but of course they're masters of body language, so they're already interpreting what we're going to say or ask them to do by seeing it in advance, because they're masters of body language. So it's very beautiful.
And how do your true horsemanship techniques vary to traditional horsemanship as we know it?
Well, because I was a pretty professional for the best part of 9 years, and I learned so much from them. I'll never ever take away what I learned, but I realised there's much more. There's much more out there. So I decided to resign as a pretty professional and spread my wings and look and see what else was possible out there. So for me, liberty, or any kind of horse training really, is like an ongoing thing. There are things that I did in the past that I don't do anymore. There are things that I learned in the past that I haven't even put into practice yet. So it's kind of hard to explain really, but I think if we're on a constant search to find new and better things, that is the ideal world. I really don't believe anymore in my way is the only way. I really believe in synergy and that we all can learn from each other. And that's what I try to bring across in my online training platform and social media, stuff like that. Did that answer your question?
It's really interesting. Yeah, well, no, 100%. I was just going to say, it's really interesting that you use the phrase, get good with horses. And I wanted to know from your experience, how good do you think we are as horse owners in 2023 with our horses?
That's a really nice question. Of course, I think it is growing because we have so much advantages and disadvantages with social media. Education is so much more readily available. I mean, you can watch YouTube videos and just learn so much more. So indeed, I think horsemanship is growing in general, and I just love being inspired by people like, for example, Elise Fremont. She's a Grand Prix rider and she rides on a neck rope in true freedom at Liberty. Outstanding performance. it's just phenomenal. It gives me goosebumps every time I watch her. And she's doing performances at Grand Prix events. So on one hand, you've got Grand Prix dressage, which is another subject, but it definitely could do with some improvements. And then you've got this wonderful lady coming in, doing all of that with no bridle on, and in some senses, actually much better quality. Where did she come from? Well, we only know about her because of social media. So if you are inspired by people that are fantastic, then yeah, and that's what everybody is now. They've got a better chance of being better with their own horses. So it's definitely improving.
What would you like to see horse owners doing to get better with their horses? What do you think we are sort of not doing right in 2023?
I think sometimes we forget to look at them as a species. You know, because again, especially going back to social media, there's a lot of lovey-dovey stuff, and you know, the puppy with the duckling and stuff like that. And sometimes the anthropomorphism gets a bit too strong. I think in one of my subjects in my platform is who horses are. And there I get people to just really think about and remember that the horse is a horse. At the end of the day, they're not human. And although they do, emit certain ways and characteristics and pleasures which can relate to the human species, at the end of the day, it is different and they are still a horse. And quite oftentimes I find myself, whilst teaching, reminding people of that constantly. And when they do start to realise that, yes, it's a horse and I can treat them like a horse, things already go better. You know, because it's like somebody treating me like I'm not a human. It's not going to work.
Have you got an example of that for us, Zoe?
Oh, I don't know.
Have you got an example? I'm wondering, Zoe.
I've got millions. So, for example...
Because we see our horses as our babies, don't we?
They're our babies, yeah, they are. And don't get me wrong, I kiss and cuddle my horses, and, you know, I'm not saying don't love one and stuff like that. I'll give you a nice example. So about 2 years ago, really lovely lady, quite well-to-do, quite wealthy, and she turned up at the stables with her €600 brand new coat on. So I admired her for a coat. I was like, wow, that's a really nice coat. Thank you. And then I saw her not 10 minutes later, and I said, what happened to your coat? And it was all ripped and the zipper was torn off.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he pulled on the zipper, and you know me, I like to let him play with my jacket. So, okay, you've got an 800-kilo horse ripping on your €900 jacket. What else is going on? Because, again, it's a baby, yes, but come on. And that can lead to other things. Another example, I'll tell you this because it's quite a funny story. There was another lady, and she, for every single day of the week, she has a brand new, clean New Zealand blanket, an outdoor blanket. And she will get them washed, and she makes sure that the horse has a clean one every single day. And I was standing there once talking with her at the paddock. It's just a sand paddock. There's no mud, no poo out there. It's just a very clean sand paddock. And she said to me, oh, just hang on a minute. And she ran over to get up her horse because he was trying to roll. And she didn't want the blanket to get dirty. This is an extreme example of people, yeah. And I was just, what are you doing? And it's not somebody I was ever going to teach or give advice to anyway. It was just funny to observe that. Why would you do that? The horse is outdoors with an outdoor blanket on to keep it clean or warm or whatever reason she's wearing it. So these are the examples really. That they are extreme examples. And then on a daily basis, there's constant, oh, my horse doesn't feel well. Oh, it's half asleep. I can't do anything with it today. These kind of things where, yeah, it kind of can make sense if your horse has just been dozing. Give it 10 minutes to wake up and give it a groom and stuff like that. But it can go to extremities. You understand what I mean? They can then lead it to, oh, I'm just not going to do anything with the horse today. And again, it's
creating excuses to sort of get out of the session. Yeah.
Yeah. And
What
if
do
we
you
look at
say
horses,
to clients and to those who might be coming up with these excuses and these reasons not to do things, or sort of letting their horses sort of perform these behaviours that aren't ideal when they are, like you say, these ton beasts that can be quite dangerous if we let them sort of dominate our clothing, or, pull at us. Or I'll never forget a friend of mine who always says you must never let your horse sort of rub up and down, almost pushing you over. It must know its manners. But what do you do, and how do you talk to your clients in those situations when they've got quite set in their ways over the years?
yeah, it's quite hard. I try to use kind of a weaning process and give them examples, just examples and stories from experiences, just to get their mind to start to think on another way. Horses can learn things immediately. They say the 3-second rule: a horse only needs 3 times to learn something new. Unless they make an immediate decision about it, then they can learn it immediately. For us, when we're learning new things, especially if we're using our bodies, it takes 21 repetitions or 21 days. So it's also very important, especially if you're an instructor, to understand that they're not going to change overnight. And of course, the human also has to make the distinct decision to make these changes. Saying that, I'll only give someone a certain amount of time too. If I keep finding repetitive behaviours where they're actually also putting themselves into trouble or danger, then at a certain point I will stop, because I put my heart and passion into people and their horses. And if they're not trying to make that change, that full change, then I decide at that moment, quite possibly, I'm not the instructor for them. But maybe I plant a seed, if that makes sense.
Yes, I bet you have to be so diplomatic as well when dealing with fellow equestrians.
It is, because you fall in love with the 100%. Horses as well. Yeah.
In your journey as an equestrian professional, what inspired you to go down the true liberty road and to fully immerse into that world?
Well, I never forget it. I was at badminton in 2019. And I remember during the break they had Pirelli demonstrations, and I saw a girl and she was jumping 6 upright barrels, bareback, bridleless, no neck rope, just supported with carrot stick. And you're like, how do you even do that? And then she hops off and the horse is doing little mini circles around her, and then she starts doing slalom weaves, just with nothing. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I just want to know how. And then 6 months later, from a magazine, I think it was one of the popular ones in the UK, and there was a DVD in the case, and it was a Pirelli DVD, and it was the beginning steps, how to get successful with horses. And from there I got completely addicted, because you could see straight away through the groundwork movements and through the patterns and communications of how you learn to ride, it sets you on a path to be much more successful with your horses. So that's really how I got inspired to actually switch to the natural horsemanship route. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm also incredibly interested in different, if you want to call it a word, methods and ways of training your horses. I've got lots of inspiration out there that I follow on Instagram, and just try to get inspired, and sometimes still study with people.
I was going to say, this has got to be, despite all of your accolades, it's got to be a constant education for you to keep up to date with all the advances in learning. How do you keep up to date with the latest in the horsemanship sort of news and world?
I don't sleep. No, not really. No, I do study. I listen to a lot of podcasts for a start. Not just horse related, but also self-development and stuff like that, to stay on top, because it's to also do this job, you have to have a certain amount of confidence and keep yourself well and stay positive. And as for the actual horse training, I'm always on the search for studying different people, and I will buy their materials and study them and become a fan. And whether they know who I am or not, it doesn't matter to me because I'm there as a student. And I just constantly do that. It's not always possible. There'll be times where 2 months have passed and I might think, ooh, I get like this itch. And my mind is saying, oh, I need to learn something. I need to stay on top of my studies. And that might be reading a book or, like I say, buying online materials, stuff like that.
And take us right back, Zoe, to when you first fell in love with horses, before you became a professional, but just when you became a horse lover.
So I grew up in Essex. I was born in East London, in the rural London. And when I was 2, we moved out to Essex, the suburbs, and across from my bedroom window there was horses in the field. And my mum used to hold me before I could look up out of the window and hold me at the window to look at the horses. And that was literally the first word that came out of my mouth was naughty. Naughty. So not even mama. Naughty. And then as I could learn to walk and stuff, then I would have a little bench there so I could look out the window at the horses. And we used to walk over there and give them, I hate to say this, bread. Because my parents were non-horsey. Yeah. And then eventually that
every owner's worst nightmare, isn't it? The walkers that come by and feed your horses. Oh,
really
only the other month I was banging up signs that say, do
80s.
not feed my horses, Yeah, no one knew back then, did they?
I know, terrible.
Oh.
No, and as a matter of fact,
but what can you do when the education's not there?
Early 80s. Yeah, well, again, that's where I love social media because it's helping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Creating more awareness. And of course, a lot more people are turning now to education, and because there's so many resources as well. And, and if your mate's doing it, well, it's going to be interesting for you to do it as well. And therefore, I think it's really nice. Even in traditional training now, you're seeing people looking more in depth at anatomy and biology, and of course, who horses are. That you see a change in the way things are being portrayed to the people. So stuff like that, the bread. But yeah, from there,
but
I went.
It gave you that opportunity to be around horses, and then straight into a riding school.
Yeah, it was either that or growing up in East London. I was very grateful that they moved to the countryside. So.
Well, It's so interesting. Earlier you mentioned that working with the horse, you're reliant on it being willing and wanting to work with you. How do you achieve true liberty, but also keep that horse's trust and make sure the horse is willing and actually wants to participate?
Yeah, trust is the number one thing. Quite oftentimes, students, they go too quick. And especially for the horse. So to really achieve true liberty is to kind of practice things in slow-mo. There you can win the horse's trust, and unless it's a more extroverted horse, then you might have to be a little bit quicker and entertain their brain somewhat. But as the extroverted horse starts to connect, they will actually slow down and connect with you in another way anyway. But it's really about slowing down and really knowing your subjects. If you're doing, for example, stay with me, you really need to know how that looks and where your body position needs to be and how you need to hold your stick. And you really need to that's why I say get good. You get good at that. Quite often the horse is only seeing us as a silhouette. They're not looking at us like I can look at you now with my eyes and examine your face and your hair. A horse doesn't do that. They can, but it's not often that they do. They'll see you with a silhouette. So your silhouette has to be good, soft, prominent, clear, black and white. Horses have no room for grey. If you are grey, it means you are probably learning or you don't have enough education yet to practice what you need to practice. So to get good at liberty is really all about studying your subjects and getting good at it in the basics, forgiving the horse if they do disconnect or decide to leave. And then over time, as you get better, it will start to come together. We all have had horses that run away or turn around and kick at us. It's all about learning from those mistakes and trying not to let them happen again. And quite oftentimes I'll see people practicing, for example, not liberty, but they just have their horse loose in a round pen or in a lunging pen. And they're chasing them horses around like idiots. Sometimes they'll put another horse in that doesn't even know that horse, and they're kicking at each other and biting at each other. And the humans are just laughing at this and thinking it's funny. Quite oftentimes I'll even see a horse kick at its human's head because they've turned them so hard and fast against them, not realizing that their own body language is doing that. And the worst part about that is that horses learn things. And whatever it is that you are doing, whatever quality it is you're offering your horse in its education, that is what they're going to start to think they're supposed to do. And quite oftentimes I've even seen horses go in as a pattern and kick out at their human because it starts to become what they think they're supposed to do. And that is really bad horsemanship. That's where sometimes I have gone out of my way to say, hey, could you just be careful, and maybe offered my advice. I don't often offer unsolicited advice, but when I see somebody is in danger, it's worth it, even if they don't like me after I said it. So yeah, true liberty is really a beautiful thing if you have the education or the beginnings of understanding.
And it sounds like you need to go back to the beginning. You need to go back to basics and look at how you move, how you stand, your presence, and even your sort of direction of energy.
Yeah. And the biggest secret is to be relaxed about it, because people can get very stiff and it's like learning to dance. And if you're not a natural dancer, it's going to be difficult. So it's important to relax and to just give your brain the time to remember the 21 times to just learn that sequence. And then before you know it, it starts to happen. The horse is already 6 steps ahead. It's no problem there. So it's just, if the better we get, the better the horses look, appear, and become. And that's the truth.
How interesting that often our first sort of encounters with horses, when we all fall in love with equestrianism, is on horseback, but actually most of us don't know how to be around the horse, and sometimes even our own horses, because we've only ever been taught to ride. We haven't actually been taught how to walk alongside our horses, move alongside our horses.
Yeah, it's lovely you say that. I actually think about that quite often. And I've been to some horse events recently, and I have my idols, of course, and one of them is a dressage rider, and she's got a fantastic, beautiful white horse. And she can ride amazing passage. And then I was out backstage, and I was watching her walk along with this horse, and she couldn't even lead it. And then I saw them that evening loading this horse up with 2 lunge lines and 3 grooms trying to get it into this 200,000 euro lorry. Now you're thinking, come on, there's so much more. You can do all of that. You've put all of that effort and love and care into really good riding, actually, and you don't know anything about the horse on the ground. It's so interesting, huh? This is where I want to see a change in the world, actually, and get people good all round with horses. You don't have to become a professional trailer loader, but it's really nice if you learn why horses don't want to go in the trailer, and then you can help them, So
it's
a
so
really
interesting, because I've often thought how, for me, I spent my whole life riding horses. It wasn't till I had the responsibility of loaning and sharing horses as a teenager that I fell in love with Groundwork. And it wasn't until I then owned youngsters and yearlings of my own that I really got passionate about horsemanship and actually often doing more of the groundwork than I did with the riding, which was the whole intention of owning a horse. But now for me, it's about that bond on the ground, and it's about achieving things together, on that direct connection, on that ground level that most horse owners don't even think about when purchasing a horse.
That's right. They don't even. Some people, like, I'll give you an example. I keep my horses 15 minutes from Amsterdam, so we're in the suburbs of the nature by the coast, and there is 200 horses there. 200 horses.
Wow.
Now, it's a lot, but it's spread out over such a diverse. It's called a nature gebied, a nature land. So
Oh, wow.
if you turn up there, you would only think there was 30 horses there. But as you start to walk around and look, you're going to see more and more horses. It's quite remarkable.
Wow.
And I would say that 50 of those people are really good. They're really natural and they really understand the groundwork principles and stuff like that. And then another 50% are on their way to learning that, being nature. But the other 100, I can be doing the most amazing things with my horses. They lay down, I can play bang bang, shoot dead, stuff like that. And they don't even see it. They walk with tunnel vision. And maybe a small percent of them do see it, but they're so scared of it, they don't know what to make of it. And this is something we must also remember as professionals. We want to change the world, become a better place for horses and humans. But it's not possible for everybody. They have to make the decision themselves. And people are afraid when they see stuff like that. Or they go to horse events to actually watch that stuff. They don't realise that that's actually going on in their backyard. And that's what I find
And I guess one of the big conflicts
Mm.
you must find is actually people being open to the ideas and open to your instruction and to hear your ideas, because many people have learnt through their generations, if horses have been in their family, or through their own instruction over the years, and get very set in their ways.
That's right, yeah. I mean, even still today, I have to catch myself by not getting on always on the left side. There's a right side of the horse as well, offside. It's really hard to unlearn those patterns. And so I get it when people struggle to, but, like anything in life, if you really want it, you'll chip away at it. And then one day that diamond will be revealed. But it's not easy. And for some people, they have natural talent and they just pick it up and they go, especially the kids. Kids are fantastic to teach. They just pick it up and then you're like, where did you learn that? Well, I watched you in a video. And you're like, unbelievable. Little sponge brains. And some adults too, they just pick it up. But for the rest, it is hard because we have to battle with tradition. The first book we ever looked at probably contained things which are just so imprinted that our brain finds it really hard to open a new drawer and close that one. But overall, of course, through repetitive training, we can overcome and learn anything.
And tell us about that diamond moment, because you've mentioned how it can help us and our relationship with our horses, but it can also, True Liberty, help the horses' well-being and enhance their lives. Tell us about a transformation of a horse that you've worked with during your time.
Oh, that would be my Mia. So my Mia is, unfortunately, she left us this month, 3 years ago. She's the one that I wrote the book about, the horse that's her. That's my Mia.
Oh,
and she was my biggest teacher. I have to try not to cry now. She was my biggest teacher because when I moved to the Netherlands in 2005, I found myself a job. It was a 60, 72-hour work week, and she really didn't like that because I was barely there, and she was out on them fields, what I just told you about, on this massive place, and she literally became wild. And I had all these dreams and goals for her, but it just wasn't happening. And in the end, she used to chase me across the field. And it got to the point where I felt sick having to go out to the field to get her. I was that scared. And unfortunately, that's when I tapped. I'd already heard about the Bridles in 2019. I'd started a little bit of groundwork with her in 2000s. And then when I moved to the Netherlands, that just all kind of got lost and forgotten. It was there then that I tapped back into that. Practice the 7 games, blah, blah. And she just started to transform. She went from literally knocking me over and biting at my face to standing at a respectable 1 meter distance and looking at me with her ears forwards, not pinned back. And it was from there I just got addicted. I was like, okay, what's next? How? And she was my first horse that I really went through learning how to do liberty. And she actually helped me teach him, Kalen, or Lenny, as he's known on social media, So I would work in twos with them, and I don't recall half of what he knows, what I taught him, because she helped me. You know, when we would work in stay with me position, she would be on my left side and he would be on my right. And if he was to move out of position, or he was doing something or thinking about doing something that she knew he was thinking, she would tell him. You know, and it was really a wonderful, thing. So she taught me.
You had a horse apprentice.
Yeah. Professor.
An accomplice.
Student, now my teacher become a professor. Yeah, really. So it's amazing, and I really take my hats off to people who work with multiple horses at Liberty, because it's teamwork, and they really do team up. If I wanted them to, I've now got my little mini Shetland. He works in together with him. If I say team up, they will literally get by each other's side. You know, and that's another way of training as well, of course, using words as a bridge or a reinforcer. They know what that word team up means. So, and Lenny taught Benny. You know, he would actually go over to him and get by his side, and now Benny's like, me first, and he'll go over. So that's the journey I have with him now at Liberty is even more far beyond and beautiful. And of course, I know what I know now, and I can't wait to know what I'm going to know than with her. But she really, I remember being in tears hundreds of times with her, because she would offer these moments of what I could only dream of, especially at Liberty. And there it was happening right in front of me, inviting me into this bubble, this safe place. It just becomes addictive. Yeah.
How did you get Mia from that place of being really angry with you and being very jealous that your time was being taken up by work and she was out in the field? How did you get her from that place of anger to then that place of positivity and forgiveness, where her ears were forward and were listening to you?
Yeah, there was quite a few ingredients. 1, I had to stop pitying her. 2, I had to respect her as a species. 3, I had to get my education. 4, I had to put time into her. So those days, I had to be in the office at 8. I would be at the stables at 5:30. On my way home from work around 7, sometimes 8 o'clock in the evening, I would go to the stables and be with her. My days became 15-hour days every day, but it was worth it for the change, because at the beginning, I was only going to her at the weekends. She had a whole 5 days to just be wild, crazy, and living with all mares as well. So, you know, when you turn up, you have to be higher in hierarchy than all 30 mares. And she was top dog.
Wow.
So I had to
mare can be
lift my
challenging,
hierarchy.
let alone 30.
So you got 30 mares that you have to, and quite often I deal with this quite often at our stables, because they do keep same-sex groups. He lives in a same-sex group, geldings, but it is different with the mares, because you have this constant change in hormones, and not to mention the owner's hormones. So one day the group can be really calm and quiet and passive, and then the next day they're all kicking each other and biting each other's throats. It's really out of balance. And she taught me that quite a lot. So I had to rise my game above that and get rid of my self-pity and my emotions, and just start being in the moment. It's very hard to be in the moment, especially if you're constantly thinking about the past, and, I did it wrong. That's not what horses care about. They only care about now. So it's not a meditative state or anything like that, but that's why I call it my bubble. I just want to go into a place now where I forget about the world, put the phone away, just have moments with the horse, and they become your meditation. They are your meditation and therapy. Does that make sense?
And with True Liberty, it does. It really does. And it's absolutely fascinating. And there's so many things that I want to unpick with what you're saying, Zoe. It's so interesting that True Liberty is about understanding the horse and its emotional capacity and its natural instincts and behaviours. But how do you incorporate that into the training when the horse's instinct may say, you know, I don't want to join the session today, or I'd rather be doing this, or I'd rather be, you know, having a snooze or rolling on the floor and not taking part?
Yeah, so first, there are definitely days when horses have off days. just like us. Maybe they've been standing in a storm for 3 days if they live outside and they get a bit tired and fed up with that. Or I don't know, maybe they've had a kick and you don't necessarily see the injury on their body, but they're a bit bruised or whatever. They can just have off days. So therefore then I'm going to, be easy on the horse. I'm not going to make it do something. But if you are interesting enough and the horse is healthy and, they're taken care of well, their hooves are good, the dental care is good, everything is good, and you do your best to give them a good diet, and most of the time then the horses are willing. They will come with you. A lot of horses are just so overfed or fat or fed the wrong things. This can have an immense effect on training. So it's very important that people learn how to, take care of their horses in the first instance. The second part is that I can't look at the horse as a human, but I can look at, I am their carer, their parent, their teacher, and their friend. So I then can incorporate my training program without the horse feeling like it's made to do things. So always, whatever I'm doing, whether it's liberty, groundwork, preparing to ride, the warm-up between 5 and 15 minutes should be slow and should be enough to, take care of the horse in the sense that my warm-up is preparing them mentally and physically so that they can enjoy the session. The way you leave that day is where you're going to pick up the next day. So if I keep leaving my horse feeling tired, exhausted, worn out, mentally broke down, pulled on, pushed on, poked, that's what they're going to remember the next session. Okay, so each session we should pick up the horse better than how we found them. And that's also healthy movement. I must improve my horse's posture. I must help them improve the way they feel, teach the horse to fall in love with the exercises that we're offering them. Therefore, they will start to offer. Therefore, they will start to change their own posture. With Caleb, when I was teaching him flying lead changes, he's ataxic in his hind leg, so especially his right hind leg, it's a little bit slower than his left hind leg. And through the academic work, I helped him get strong, believe in his body, and you could see him concentrating and thinking, I can do this, and really putting effort into it. And then I was watching him playing with his buddies, and then he's off hopping around doing flying lead changes. And he didn't do it in the past. They take it with them. They really do. So that's pretty much it, really. Take care of them. Take care of your education. Get better at what you're doing. 1% at a time is really enough because it's better than 0. Make your horse feel like a king or a queen. Make sure that they're not deteriorating through your training sessions, but are improving. And then most of the time you can pick them up and you can do what you like, however you like, when you like, every day.
And I'm fascinated by the fact that earlier on you mentioned that horses can be introverts and extroverts. Now, as human beings, we all talk, don't we? We all categorise ourselves and say, well, I'm extroverted because of this, or I like my own time and my own space, so I'm an introvert, or I'm 50-50. How do we know whether our horse is an introvert or an extrovert?
Yeah, see, that's quite a tough one. These days now, I actually refer to them as low, medium, or high-spirited. Okay, so you can have, so low-spirited horse, of course, sits in introverted category. But they're the funny ones because, like, in his group where he lives, you've got about 6 introverts. They're the ones that are labelled bomb-proof, and they don't want to walk with their human and they're not interested. But if you go out to the paddock at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, they are playing. They're the ones that are the rampant lunatics causing chaos. So really, are you low-spirited or are you just doing that when your human is around? This is where I find it getting interesting. And then you can have horses that are pretty chill, medium spirit on the paddock. They'll always say, hi, how are you? And then when their human comes along, they become more extroverted, high-spirited. So for me, it's always questionable. Is that their true innate character, the spirit? Or is that what they've learned with their human? Or is that how they feel when their human's around? So that's what I try to tap into. So quite oftentimes, if I've got a low-spirited horse and it's a bit shut down and fed up with its training, I always now pre-warn the human, are you ready? Because it could be a week, it could be a couple of months, but when your horse starts to wake up and starts to look around, they might get a little bit scared, because now they're actually looking around, they're seeing the world, they're coming out of this shutdown, and they start to get a bit spooky, they question things they never questioned before, and sometimes that scares people. They're like, oh my god, I've made my horse worse. And it's like, no, you've brought your horse out of this place, and now it's got to learn to see the world from this level, and then when they get confident there, that may well be who they are, true to their character. And of course, you have the reverse of that. Some people are working with their horses. It's a medium or a high spirit, and after a while, it starts to become lower spirited, and that can be down to training technique, diet, health, whatever. Or the horses just learn to shut down, and that's not good either. So, if we look at the spirit level, I find that a bit more interesting, because we find quite often the horses are different when the humans are not around. Not always, but quite often. It gives you a measure.
I've heard the term in training used a lot of, that's a really honest horse, or, that horse really loves its work. Do you find working with horses that they all have the capacity to love working, or are there some, like humans, that would rather be having a snooze or sitting back and not getting involved?
Oh, definitely. Character-wise, I'm even more open than I was 2 years ago to character, because, some horses just were not meant or designed to carry a rider. It's just not in their character or their build even. And then on the other hand, there are horses that really it works. They enjoy their work, and they look forward to being with their people. But it all comes down to the people, really. Maybe I can take that horse that they think is unrideable, and in 3 months get it to a point where it can really look like it's rideable. But is it really? Maybe not. And if a horse is born with a genetic defect, I don't know, like a club foot or bad teeth, who's to say we can be sticking a bit in its mouth and doing stuff like that? So I think we should just look at each horse as an individual, and then really choose a horse that suits us. If you are a green person straight out of the riding school, don't buy a young horse and so you think you can grow together. This is one of the biggest common mistakes I come across. It just doesn't work. Get a horse that's educated, safe, that's done its rounds, knows how to do road work, maybe trailer loads, stuff like that. Just get experience there, and then maybe buy that green horse. But at the end of the day, experience and education is your best bet. And if we look at the horse as each individual as a character, and what they're, I don't know, I always like, when a horse bucks, I always make a joke like, oh, I just saw his talent. He's talented for the capriole. Or if a horse is rearing out of, I don't know, defiance for its human, I'll say, well, we've got a talent there for a show horse. We can. There's ways you can turn it around. Do you know what I mean? And rather than suppress it with tie downs and stuff like that, we can turn it into something.
That actually is expressing its personality to us and its self-expression. Yeah. We talk about us as humans, don't we, being able to express ourselves and to be who we're meant to be, but actually so do our horses. And I think that's so interesting what you say about thinking about some horses as actually not capable of being ridden or shouldn't be ridden. It's not suited to them, their personality, their character. But actually, I don't know the statistic, but probably most horse owners will buy a horse for the purpose of being ridden, not as, they get labelled, don't they, as, oh, we can't have a field ornament. Yeah. But actually, are we thinking about horse ownership in the wrong way?
Yeah. I guess in some sense that can be, depending on your background and why you bought the horse in the first place. But again, I guess it goes back to the question, what do you really want from the horse? If indeed it's just to ride, then buy a horse that is suitable for riding. Some people even question, and I do think about that sometimes, are horses really suitable for riding? On one hand, I learned that the way their backs are shaped, it's perfect for us to sit on. The neck is in such a position that we can have connection to the head. Try sitting on a donkey. A donkey has got no neck and it's all the way down there and it feels really strange. So in that sense, a horse is suitable to ride. If we bypass that now, because I'm going a little bit on the wrong path, just basically I advise people to look at what it is they want from the horse and to buy one that suits the discipline that they want it for, or one that is at least athletic and able to go on 2 to 4 hour trail rides if that's what you want to do, and not a short stumpy fjord pony that is better off suited pulling a plough. And I see that quite often as well, where people buy big, stocky, Belgian warm bloods and even different types of, for example, Shire horses, the non-athletic types, and they buy them to go on trail rides, and it's just not fair on these horses. It's not what they're built for. They're built to pull things and to use their strength and use their power. So
that's really
for the
interesting.
most part, just choose the horse
really
that
interesting.
suits the discipline.
And you mentioned earlier that trust is one of the most important qualities and parts of your training sessions. How do you build trust in a true liberty session when you are at the end of the day asking the horse to do things and you are trying to achieve something with your horse?
Oh, that's a really nice question. One of the things that people lack the most in horse training is having what I call relaxation buttons. So that means if the horse gets tense, how are you going to ask the horse to become relaxed or to trust you to relax? Because an unrelaxed horse cannot learn, period. If they're unrelaxed, they're unconfident. If you're unconfident as a human species, it's very hard for you to learn, right? So we've got to have buttons which says to the horse, relax, trust me. And that doesn't necessarily have to come from voice. Quite oftentimes voice can make things worse, actually, because it carries a different vibration, and if you're a little bit nervous, they can hear it in your voice and you set off pheromones telling the horse that and stuff like that. So the main thing is knowing what your buttons are to teach a horse to relax. If a horse's neck is low or lower than what it would be if it was scared, which would be high, it's already going to start to relax. So getting relaxation buttons. Therefore, you are already gaining trust from the horse. You can't not. It's not something that can be forced. It's something that has to be repeated and shown to the horse over time. One of the most common, let's say, techniques of teaching a horse to relax is being able to lower their head on the rope halter. That's a very beginning basic skill, which I encourage all horse owners to learn, from the left side of the horse, from the right side of the horse, and standing in front of them, because it's 3 different communications. In that sense, you could even say a horse is a schizophrenic, because you have to train them from different angles to lower their heads. If you only practice from the left side, that's going to get good, but when you get to the right side, you're going to have a bit of resistance. So it's really important to understand why we need to ask the horse to relax in order to progress, to gain their trust, basically. Along the horse's neck, Kaylin, here you have the brachiocephalicus muscle. And that muscle is what I call the flight-fight muscle. It's right here. And when a horse gets tense, the first thing they're going to do is raise their heads and engage that muscle to hold up the head so that gravity is not pulling it down. So when that muscle is tense, you can bet your bottom dollar that there is adrenaline in their system, and then only the shuffle of a leaf or somebody's flapping their hands, the horse is going to spook. So the main thing is, the advice I can give to people is teach your horse to relax, lower its head, don't let that brachiocephalicus muscle get engaged, and you're already going to be set up on a successful path. This is why I believe Western trained horses, they're trained quite often to move with their head quite low. They're set low from the base of the shoulders. If you look at the traditions of that training, I now kind of think I understand why they kept the horse's head low, because it kept the brachiocephalicus muscle unengaged. Therefore, cowboys' horses are renowned for being known for being brave because they never had the opportunity to raise their heads to get flighty. If we're talking about roller cur, or I think that's called that in England still, or low, deep and round, they're just engaging that muscle, and not forgetting to mention the horse can only see just in front of its feet. It's just paralysed with tension and fear, so it cannot relax. So we must really take care to help. There are some breeds like the Friesian. Friesians are very common here in the Netherlands. They're set like a swan. That's quite difficult, but they can still have quite a high headset, but with a relaxed brachiocephalicus muscle. You have to find at what point and where the horse is most relaxed. But for the most part, lowering their neck from the base of the shoulder, not pulling down at the pole of here, teaching the horse to feel that feeling down is going to help you build trust. Because I mention this because that's pretty much what I come across 99% of the time, is that people cannot build trust with their horses, especially at liberty, if they do not have buttons to communicate to their horse, please relax and trust me.
What advice would you give to those listening who really want to... 100%. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm just wondering what advice you'd give to those listening right now who are thinking, I really want to try this, but I want to incorporate it into my horsemanship training, but how do I do that? Where do I even begin?
Well, I can send them to my online training academy, or get good with find a resource that really can. Yes. So you can, studying with people like myself, it's really valuable. You can even do online coaching now, but it is hard because quite oftentimes we'll come across a resource and it's just so overwhelming. There's so much information, you don't know where to start. So that's where support helps. Having an instructor or someone like myself that you reach out to and ask, where's a good starting point, and they can reference you that. Question, wasn't it? So basically do your homework, ask friends. The best way to do anything really, even if it's Tai Chi, karate, or learning CrossFit, is to get to talk to people who have experience with that and get their feedback, their knowledge. And if you really want to start off on the horsemanship journey, of course, groundwork is going to be a big chunk of that. But boy, oh boy, does that help you when you ride them, because you just understand so much more about their bodies, the way their eyes work, the way they think, the way they don't think, because a lot of people think horses think the way they do. No, they're a species-specific thinker. And when you get just those little niches, sometimes it can be 1 minute of information or, an hour of reading. But if you go out of your way to do that, you're already knowledgeable than if you had not, So I encourage you to find a good resource, like Get Good with Horses, and learn a little bit about who horses are in order to set you up for success. And then if you really love your groundwork, you're going to, no doubt, discover liberty. And if, like me, you really love the groundwork, because I think you do too, liberty can become your passion and override other things. I always wanted to be an eventer. I don't even think about that anymore, because liberty and beyond is so much more powerful and interesting,
And do you think that's because eventing seemed quite achievable to you and very well sort of talked about and communicated? There were resources everywhere, and it's talked about at every riding school and amongst the equestrian community. Do you think it's less accessible to follow the path of natural horsemanship, of true liberty?
5 years ago, I would have said yes. But it is changing. Like, I write articles for magazines, and there's a magazine here, including the Horsemanship Journal. And there's a magazine here in the Netherlands called Bit and Cap, and that was really a renowned dressage-based, show jumping-based magazine, sports magazine. And they really have turned their hat around. That they approach people like myself and are really now the natural horsemanship or the Groundwork, the academic art is really taking forefront over the articles. And I find that really interesting. And also one of my sponsors, they particularly wanted to sponsor me here in the Netherlands because natural horsemanship was, so they did a ranking of disciplines and asked the public what their favourite discipline was. And natural horsemanship was 3rd on the ranking.
Wow.
Now, that's incredible because 5 years ago, it would have been number 10 or maybe not even in the list. And they wanted me on their sponsorship program because they want natural horsemanship in there. Yeah, just because of that ranking. So things are changing. It's going slow. We can't complain, though, because it is changing. I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to see the full change that I would like to see. But I like to hope in the next generation, especially, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids now, and when they're my age, I can't imagine what it's going to look like, especially if it stays on the path it is now, where horses are put first, and the tact and the discipline second.
And we've talked a lot about the equestrian community that we're all a part of and how, we can get very set in our ways. But I'm wondering whether you've ever come up against any challenges or criticism when promoting and talking about true liberty.
Oh, yeah. Especially about, for example, expression, the horse's expression. That's really hard for people to just not understand. If you go in a paddock or a pasture and watch horses, their ears are not always forwards like this. Their ears are soft and passive and back. So that's one of the hardest things. With regards to criticism, I did have a viral video on TikTok where my horse is backing up and reversing into a paddock by himself, and then he comes around and then I climb up on the fence and get on his back. And I tried really hard to not focus on the negative comments. Out of, 8,000 comments, let's say 200 of them were negative. But of course, being a human, I'm going to focus on them, and I got all upset about it. Stupid me.
Yeah.
Because you put your heart and soul into it. And people were, she's using the stick, she's abusing the horse. I didn't even use the stick, it's just in my hand because horses are horizontal and I use my stick as a horizontal communication. And I did respond that into one of the comments, and the human said, well, my dog is also horizontal, but I don't use a stick on it. So, well, one, I'm not using a stick in that way. And 2, a dog is a predator. A horse is a prey animal. There's a completely different communication. So I have learned to not even bother chase after people when it's negative. But the main thing is to just keep being a good example. If we can be good examples and not discriminate and knock people down, things get better. They can't not get better. And if they're not on board with that, they're just not worth the effort. They're not going to never be a part of your tribe. And when it comes to liberty, things are getting better in terms of people. There's a very common term called monkey see, monkey do. There's nothing wrong with that if you see something and you want to try it. But just all you've got to do is be aware if it's not working, you need more education and help, or study it more, because the monkey see, monkey do, sometimes people are very successful. I would say about 10% of my learning is just observing and watching, monkey seeing and monkey doing, and actually being successful. But I think that's because I have a bit of a foundation, and an understanding. And if you don't have that, you're going to struggle, unless you have a really good horse that just says yes to everything and is maybe a little bit trained that way already. You might be lucky. But for the most part in liberty, I get positive feedback, and it's really nice, and just trying to give people inspiration and motivation to at least try. Because quite oftentimes when you see something that looks really cool, I don't know, maybe someone's standing on a mountain block, I have videos of that as well, and I hold up my saddle and my horse sideways over to me at liberty to put the saddle on, it can be scary. You think, there's no way I could ever learn that. please don't be discouraged, because it actually doesn't take too much to teach your horse to do that. It's just that you have to understand some basic principles first and teach the horse those basic communications. Then you too can achieve it. It doesn't matter if it's a 90 centimetre Shetland or a 2 metre tall Shire. They can all learn this stuff. You know, it's just that a lot of people are put off when it's too good. You know, and they definitely, I could never achieve that. I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you that you can. Everybody can. It's just that you have to put time into it.
And it's so interesting because we've talked about gaining our horses' trust, but actually we need to trust in our horses that they can do it and that they have the capacity to achieve that. Because they can be, you know, it can be, like you mentioned a couple of times, the fear factor. You know, even yourself, who's a trained professional, can have that fear factor, but we have to trust in them that they can do it.
Yeah, really. And I guess the last 5-6 years, especially with Lenny, you know, I say to him, you can. Because he sometimes, because of his leg, his hind leg, the one that's a bit slower to the brain, I see him thinking, I don't know. And if I just change my energy and just change my posture a little bit, you see him try to do it. You know, and that's again, I have a relationship with him, of course, and we understand each other inside out. He knows me better than I know myself. But it really is about overcoming fears and teaching the horses to really trust their own bodies. You know, because a horse can do piaffe, passage, capriole, swing its tail over its back and be on its face, out of its face on adrenaline, prancing around the paddock with their own kind. But now we're asking them to do the same with us. And while you're at it, buddy, don't be scared of me. Because you've got adrenaline running through your veins. And usually adrenaline and humans don't mix well because the horse becomes afraid. So that's one of the areas where I struggle with dressage. You know, if you're going to do a big prancy piaffe or passage, you better be able to drop your reins after and ask your horse to do a relaxed walk. Because if you cannot, that means that horse is fired up out of his face on adrenaline and the trust buttons are missing. You see what I mean? That's what I would like to see in a dressage test, actually, is be able to go to the centre line, do a piaffe pirouette, and then drop the rein and do your free walk across to M. You know, and then it's really showing then that the horse does have adrenaline in its system. Of course it does. It has to be able to perform these beautiful movements. But at the same time, it's able to let go and trust, just like it can with its herd buddies. Lick and chew, blow out.
That's so interesting.
You know, when a horse blows out when it's leaving the arena, it's not good. Your horse should be blowing out when you first get in the arena. Oh, I feel good in here. Oh, nice. You know? I'm going right onto another subject here now.
No, it's really interesting. It's so interesting. And I'm wondering whether, when you're working alongside your horses, do you want them to see you as a member of their herd, or do you want them to see you as a human, as you are?
Yeah, I can't never not be a human around them, of course, because I stand tall, my eyes are on the front of my face, my ears are always back, I smell like what I eat, which is not meat, by the way, but I smell like me. I've got a heart that races faster than theirs, my brain is... So what I can do is, I try to always promise to my horses that I am a predator, but it's sleeping. I always want to be your parent, your teacher, and your very best friend. Very best friend. I want to be, you are my world, so at a certain point when we're together, I want to be yours. And if you have that message in your heart towards your horse, it will reflect back at you. If you're always turning up at stables, taking your problems to the barn, busy at work, worrying about what to cook for dinner, worrying about what you're going to wear to the weekend at the nightclub, you're going to reflect that into your horse. They're effectively going to lose interest or shut down. So I always say that my problems, or let's say your problems, are none of your horse's business. They do not care for the brand new car, the new trailer, whether you've got a new house, new shoes, new boots, new blanket. What they care about is how you make them feel. So therefore I cannot have my problems with me. And that was one, again, going back to my beautiful Mia. That's what she taught me. Leave your problems at the door, lady, because I'm not interested in being around you. I'm only interested in what you can offer me and how you make me feel. And once I started to make her feel good, our relationship blossomed, and she just opened up a whole new world to me, which I never thought possible.
That is so wonderful to hear. And for those, Zoe, who are thinking, I want to start today, but this is totally new in a new world, what one exercise could we try later on today with our own horses so that we can start our journey with true liberty?
A really nice one is actually just learning to lead with your horse. Okay, so quite oftentimes in riding schools teach you that the horse can be behind you when you lead them. Yeah, that's fine if the horse is shut down and they're doing it 16 times a day and little kiddies are leading them and that's the pattern that they've learned. That's great. But if we're talking about partnership and leadership and friendship, teachermanship, it's very important to teach our horses to walk next to us. Okay, I want to be able to see my horse's face. I want to be able to read what they're thinking. I don't want the horse walking ahead of me either, because if they're walking ahead, they're taking me for a walk, and that's not the idea. I don't need a 600-kilo animal taking me for a walk, especially now because it's putting me near its hind end. So a basic thing you can practice is how you actually hold your rope. All right, so if we're learning the stay with me position, I'll have the horse on one side, and my hand closest to the horse effectively will be free because I'm practicing liberty. And then my hand furthest from the horse will be carrying my stick and the excess rope. When I lead the horse in this position, I can actually put pressure towards the middle of the horse or behind the horse to send them forwards. But I must understand that when I put pressure towards the hindquarters, it's going to bring the horse's nose towards me a bit. It's going to have this feeling sending the horse's nose to me. So that's one of the secrets of the positions of learning liberty, because how you hold your stick is either going to send your horse's body or thoughts away from you, or it's going to bring them towards you. This is the communicative side. If I switch my stick now to the inside, so my stick is in my hand close to the horse, I'm actually going to give messages through the stick and through my body. I don't have to use the stick to tell the horse's body to actually move away. So if I've got a horse that's really pushy in my space, needs to unlearn some things, pulling on the zipper jacket and stuff like that, I'm actually going to have my stick on the inside so that I can give messages towards the horse's shoulder, and in the worst case scenario, if the horse is really pushy with his nose, a little bit of a message towards the nose. And then when the horse starts to understand, walk an elbow's distance from me, then I'll put the stick to the outside, where the horse then is invited to walk next to me with a feeling of being in my space. And if you can master that, and of course there is more, because you learn how to walk the horse, trot the horse, and even canter if you want, you're already changing the way your horse perceives you. They'll take you more seriously, and you can already practice the first elements of stay with me. I hope that makes sense.
Wow, that's a great place to get started.
It's quite
yeah,
different.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, because all of our horses are so different. So it's great to have a starting point, doesn't it? And it can seem so overwhelming when there are so many different things we can try, but where to actually put our marker point down on the map and where to start when we're looking through all the resources. How do these training sessions and the True Liberty sessions impact the horse's welfare outside of the field or the arena or wherever you're doing this?
So, well, anything you do with a horse outside of the field, like I spoke about earlier, should make the horse feel better. It should improve. The nice thing about liberty is that, we don't retort ever to using tie downs or things that restrict the horse's head movement and stuff like that. So surely, the horse already feels better about that. And at liberty, the horse is more free to express themselves. So if they do have troubles or are unable to do something for whatever reason, maybe they're scared of that arena corner, or maybe they're even a little bit lame, whatever, you're going to feel it and see it sooner. And especially if horses live in herd environments, like my horses live in herds, therefore they learn to hide pain more so than perhaps a horse that lives in a stable, because they have to protect themselves, and if you're lower in the ranking, you're going to get bitten or kicked a little bit more than you normally would, perhaps. So what I find then is if I work with my horse at liberty and in more freedom, or even still online but with liberty in mind, then they open up more. They open up to me, and that's really a powerful thing. And again, that's going back to that bubble as well. You start to look at your horse, I guess, in a sense, from a silhouette perspective. You just get a different feel around them, a different energy. And especially my boy, he thinks he's a stallion. He used to be in a mixed herd, but he actually moved into the all boys group because he was having too much fun with the girls. And so he's really, I'm the man. He's the Brad Pitt of horses, And when he moved in with the boys, he was like, whoa, this is all boys. And he really had to even put up the man thing even more. Very hard for him to let go. And it was actually through my liberty and through treatments, different treatments like osteopathy, and once he had a chiropractor treatment, it really was hard for him to let go. He was like, I got a whole lot on my man. And but I know through my liberty sessions, I could get him to release and let go. So there's so much you can learn. The impact can absolutely be positive for your horse. It can't not, really, especially if you're learning to look at them and read them and feel them in a perspective of that sense.
And how can the principles of true liberty be applied to other areas of horsemanship, like competitive disciplines or horse-assisted therapy as well?
Well, if a horse is able to stand still at liberty, so that means you can still have the bridle on, but the reins are loose and nobody's holding the reins. Surely that is going to be better for a small child or an elderly person or even a disabled person to be able to get on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If I'm able to do piaffe, and I can do varying amounts of my own version of piaffe on the neck rope without direct communication to the horse's mouth, surely if I do then wear a bridle and I'm able to just tweak it and make it better, surely it's going to be better. You know what I mean? So the link there for me is the better the horse gets at the groundwork, the better they're going to be at liberty. The better the horse is at the groundwork, the better they're going to be at many other disciplines, because it just makes more sense to them. And it has to be repeated enough where, for example, if I have to use a lateral bend emergency stop, for example, because something happened, I don't know, there was a loose horse running towards me in the forest, or, I don't know, my horse got scared by something, and I just bend the neck and say, whoa, buddy, slow, calm down, wait for me. Now, if I haven't practiced that enough, out of the walk, out of the trot, out of the canter in the arena, when I need to use that in real life, it can well be that the horse actually starts to become more scared of the lateral flexion itself than what they were scared of in the first place. So if we practice what we practice enough to the point where the horse, yep, I know what you're doing, it's going to help them when they get in trouble, and then they're not going to be afraid of it. When we colt start or start young horses, we climb all over them like little monkeys for a reason. I'm going to accidentally knock my knee on the horse's hip to make sure he's okay with that. So that one day, if my horse did get spooked and I got put out of my seat and my knee now is wrapped around that horse's hip because I got disseated, that the horse is not now all of a sudden afraid of my leg being wrapped around its backside and more scared of that than the thing that they was initially scared of. So over-preparing a horse is a huge part, and that's where liberty actually helps, because you are over-preparing them to cope with life and this world and society that we are inviting them to live in.
Oh, that is such a beautiful way to put it. I absolutely love that. Do you think there needs to be more collaboration and crossover between true liberty and the competitive disciplines? Do you feel that at the moment they're sort of two separate worlds, or are you seeing them coming together now?
Yeah, definitely. In the Netherlands now, we have been given permissions to bitless dressage. In Denmark, oh my gosh, they have everything on the neck rope. Show jumping, dressage, and eventing. I'm not sure about eventing, but show jumping. You're seeing now that there's more classes offered at just traditional riding schools where they offer agility, liberty, groundwork, all this stuff. It is starting to appear. And even at big events, sports events, whether it's just dressage or it's carrying dressage and show jumping at the same time, in their breaks, in their, the interval breaks, they're showing more and more of these beautiful things. I don't think it's going to be very long, and I hope, actually, that a new sport will be derived. Who's to say that we can't embody a new sport? I love how the past 2 years, actually since Corona year, pandemic year, that women's football has grown. It is phenomenal. Now you are
100%.
seeing full stadiums, and it is just, I'm not a feminist in that sense, but I just really love to see that it is being taken just as serious as the male football. That
as it should be, as it should have always been.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see why, with the speed of rate of things are going, especially in magazines and social media, that at a certain point it will be taken more seriously too. And wouldn't it be really cool if we could do competitions where, you could perform a test, but with your horse at liberty, and maybe at X you do a piaffe, or show jumping at liberty. Maybe you're on their backs and maybe you're just on the ground. It would be so wonderful. It won't be me that invents and designs that new embodied
it could be. It could be.
But it would be really great if that evolved. Yeah.
And Zoe, you've mentioned that your hopes for it to become a sport. Have you got any other hopes and dreams for the world of true liberty in the next? I mean, we've heard your reflections from the past 5 years, but looking ahead to the next 5-10 years, your hopes for the world of true liberty.
Yeah, I just really hope that people start to realise that you don't need gadgets. The bigger the bit ain't going to help you. Look at the cause. Look at your hands. Look at if maybe in 5 years your riding is not improving. Why is that? Are you putting in enough effort? Maybe your best is not your best effort. I really would like to just see people have the possibility to more resources, to reach out to people like myself, to even if it's not that they're going to train with me specifically, that I can set them on a path, maybe with someone else, because I believe deeply in synergy and sharing. And just really learning that horses, as we know, and I'm going to say it because it's been said a million times, but I'm going to say it now, if they can feel a fly landing on their shoulder, what does that whip feel like? And horses have the most amazing ability to cope with pain. It doesn't mean they don't feel it. They cope with it. It's a coping mechanism, because remember what I said about Lenny earlier. They hide pain in order to stay strong, especially amongst their own kind. So they're just going to mask it. But after years and years and years, after a while, that horse is going to shut down. Please don't get to the point where that happens. And please realise that they do love. Horses do love. It's just that it's different to the way we love. In a sense, and I explain that in my book, The Horse That Broke Your Legs, I compare horses to sociopaths, because our horses live in a herd environment and you see them bite and kick each other pretty hard. You're like, whoa, that's not good. I hope it's not a vet bill. But you don't see the horse that was kicking apologising to the horse that got kicked. Never. They're never going to apologise. So I use that humorously to also help my students. Say, doesn't mean you have to go around whacking your horse. It's not what this is about. But you just have to see that they look at things so differently to us. And I believe that's why we get away with using torture devices and gadgets, because horses just tolerate it, say yes to it. They don't scream. A dog would scream. If horses could scream, we would already not be training them half the way they're getting trained today. And I'm hoping to see a change in that, just respecting them as a species and not letting egos take over to the point where the dignity of the horse gets lost.
That's so powerful, Zoe. Just hearing that, you saying, if horses were to scream, which is a noise that us humans recognise as being associated to pain and distress, if they were to do that, then perhaps the sort of the history of tack and the way it's escalated would never have happened is really interesting and quite, horrifying for us to think about, but also gives us a lot to think about as horse owners and also the equestrian industry as well. Zoe, thank you so much. It's been an absolutely intriguing and fascinating deep dive into the world of true liberty. For those who are listening who want to find you right now and follow you and dip into your resources, how can they do that?
You just have to follow me at Get Good With Horses. I'm on across all the social media platforms, and my website is getgoodwithhorsescourses.com. And thank you so much, Anna.
Excitingly, we are... Well, no, you're so welcome, and I'm so excited that we are giving away some signed copies of The Horse That Broke Two Legs, and for horse lovers, a pocket book of poems. All of the giveaway details are in the episode notes, so make sure you go and check them out and enter after listening to the episode. And make sure you're subscribed as well to Horsemanship Journal, as subscribers to the magazine are granted access to plenty of bonus video content from Zoe herself. So you can get going as well, reading articles, watching videos and starting our own true liberty journey. Thank you so much, Zoe.
Thank you.
For today's podcast episode, and you'll see us again very soon on the next episode.